Good morning, Revolution, everyone, and welcome to our Friday show where we have the regulars back, Rosanna and
Good
Anita
morning.
and Scott, first time in a while. And we've been out organizing. We're not armchair revolutionaries, not
Oh no.
sitting idly in our offices. We're out in the streets organizing. We got a lot to talk about today. We had a big conference meeting of our trade unionists last weekend in Chicago. Then we're going to talk about what happened in Atlanta this week with the Trump and company. The boys got a lot of company indictments. And then there was a big environmental case in Montana and a big event coming up in New York, the climate marches. So we're going to talk about that. And then we have our mailbag. But first, um, Anita, if somebody in your house has a heart attack, uh, what's the first thing you do? How do you define that? Isn't that an emergency?
Absolutely. Call
And what would you
911.
do?
What would,
What's the first thing you would do when that emergency
well,
happens?
call 911, get some emergency, help in there. Uh,
You would call an
Call Central
ambulance.
Washington.
You would drop everything and call an ambulance, wouldn't you?
Right.
Scott, I would argue that we have a racism emergency in the United States. The Supreme Court outlawed affirmative action, which is literally now going to change the complexion of higher education in the United States. It's going to mean a big drop in Black and Latino engineers, doctors, professors, attorneys, architects, you name it, any of the professions. And Scott, given that fact, don't you think it's time for us to respond to this like it's an emergency?
Absolutely. I mean, it's time, and it's long past time. Um, this racism is a crisis for people of color, obviously, but for the entire people and especially the entire working class of the United States, because this um, attack on equality is one of the main organizing points and one of the main drivers of the fascist threat. So when we organize and march to say no to racism and to demand full equality for all, that's you know it's part of fighting the fascist threat. And you're right, it is an emergency.
Rosanna, we have a racism and sexism emergency in this country. The Supreme Court outlawed abortion almost a year ago, 3 or 4 weeks ago. They outlawed affirmative action. And the national board, I took this up the other night, the leading body of our party, one of the leading bodies, and it is calling on the party membership and clubs to respond. And a week from tomorrow, there's going to be a national march on Washington to commemorate the 60th anniversary of the 63 March for Jobs and Freedom, in which Martin Luther King Jr. gave that famous I Have a Dream speech. And it's time for us to, uh, I think, respond like we're really in a crisis, don't you think?
Very much so. This is our opportunity to really stand up and shout loud that we are the majority and that we want change. That we don't accept these rulings. We understand what's behind it, and it definitely calls us to drop everything and move in that direction. Take a
Anita,
trip.
I'm
Make it
placing.
fun.
I'm sorry, Rosanna, I interrupted you. I apologize.
I said take a trip. Make it fun. Take the family. You know. It doesn't have to be all serious, but it does have to be, your voice does need to be heard.
Corey, Lucia, and I are going to be there.
That's what I'm talking about. Anita, I'm raising it this way because the organizing for this event came up a little bit late and a little bit short. And I've heard a lot of people say, oh, well, uh, it's just going to be the usual suspects. They're coming a little bit dollar short, hour late. But I don't think we can respond to it that way. I think that if at all possible, our leadership and membership has to drop everything, act like it's a real emergency, and if at all possible, come to Washington to join the Communist Party YCL contingent at that march.
Mhm.
When George Floyd and Breonna Taylor were murdered by the police, we didn't yawn and say, oh, I got other things to do. I got to wash my clothes. Got to go visit my cousin, going to the park. I got a hot date. No, we took our dates to the march, right?
And Joe, it's especially important because this was the anniversary of the 1963 march, and so many of the civil rights gains that were obtained over the course of the 1960s, the Voting Rights Act, are being rolled back today. So I think it's really like, are we starting over? I don't think we're starting over, but I agree that it's an emergency and we really need to take stock of the rollbacks that have happened because of the Supreme Court decisions and other developments.
And because the right wing is organizing, the fascist movement is organized, they got unlimited money, and we have to respond with unlimited people power, unlimited working class power, and unlimited desire on our part to fight for democracy. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about the fierce urgency of now, So we have to respond to this political moment in every possible way that we can. And in the first place, that means joining forces with the thousands who are going to be in D.C. a week from Saturday. Scott, you wanted to say something, and then we're going to move the agenda.
Yeah. It's worth. I was just going to say it's worth pointing out that organized labor is responding to that call. PW had a great article by Eric Brooks about the the response of the labor movement to the demand for the March on Washington and the demand for democracy and full equality. So this is important. The working class is showing up, and where else would the Communist Party be on August 26th?
I sent a note to my sister-in-law. She's active in Delta Sigma Theta, one of the big African American sororities, and she said, "Joe, we are getting notes every single day about this march. We're going to turn out big time in a big way," which kind of gives you an indication of what the sentiment of the people are. They understand what's at stake, and we can do no less. Well, see you on Saturday, and we'll be sending out shortly a location of where we're going to meet, and we expect everybody who is at all possible to come. We understand some people are not going to be able to make it, and some plans can't be changed. But for those of us, if it's humanly possible, please try to join us. And as Rosanna said, it can be a good time. Bring family and friends. Bring a picnic basket. Bring an umbrella because it gets hot in D.C. Make sure you bring a lot of water to hydrate, and we'll be down there to greet you with a smile and a handshake and maybe a mask because that COVID is spreading. Rosanna, last weekend, the Labor Commission of the Communist Party met in Chicago, at our headquarters there. There were about 70 people in the room, another 15, 20 online. What uh, most impressed you about that meeting? You're muted. You're muted.
Oh.
We'll, we'll come back to Rosanna in just a second. Anita, were you able to tune in?
Yes, I tuned in all day Saturday. I missed Sunday, which I'm kind of bummed about, and I hope the presentations that were given on Sunday do come out either in video or in some kind of written form. But the speeches on Saturday were really inspiring. You know, the plans for 2024 were beginning to be shaped. What kind of and Roberta Wood gave a presentation about the history of the party in relation to unions. It was just a very good day, and you could tell that the group that was there was youthful and was really enthusiastic about being there, being together with a lot of different trade unionists from across the country. It was really an exciting meeting.
Scott, the thing that, Rosanna, you still there? Still can't hear you.
Still can't, yeah. Oh no.
Scott, the thing that impressed me, Rosanna, you might want to log out and then come back in. uh, Scott, the thing that impressed me most about the meeting was its youthful, you know, 80% of the people there were under 40. And they were trade unionists active in the Amazon organizing and in the Starbucks organizing and organizing of grocery workers. There were young auto workers there, young steel workers there. It was quite an event. You weren't able to tune in though.
I wasn't, but I looked at the PW coverage of it, and of course the report on it to the national board was really inspiring, and the yeah, that youthful character is amazing, not just because you know we for a long time our parties tended to skew to the older side, but also because of what it means for organized labor, what it means for the militancy of the working class and the struggle for democracy, to see that there are a huge number of young people doing this work is amazing. And it is cause for the most tremendous optimism, I think, to to have that kind of a gathering, and focused on not just the rights and interests of the working class, which obviously is front and center, but also the role of the working class in the struggle for democracy, and in the struggle against fascism, because that's what I think some people forget about Marxism sometimes. It's not just about the working class struggling for its own interests. It's the idea that the working class's struggle for its interests, its rights, its liberation must become the driving force of the big struggle for democracy and the big struggle for social progress. And yeah, once again, just tremendous optimism.
That's one of the points that we made at the meeting, that we're not just concerned about workers leading the class struggle. That kind of comes naturally. But the whole struggle for democracy generally, we made that point very strongly. Rosanna, you were there.
I was there. I don't know. Can you hear me? No?
Mhm.
Yeah, loud and clear.
You can hear me? Oh, okay, great. Yay. Somehow I fixed it. Yes, I was there. And, I was taken aback at the working conditions that many of the young people were outlining, they were stating and spoke about, uh, and, and, and their readiness for a fight back, the readiness to organize. They appreciated some of the lessons that the older comrades gave to them, and appreciated the whole conference because it gave them that energy, and it gave them some ideas of how to fight back in their own areas, and also the connections, because sometimes things come up and you don't know who to ask, and so they were able to make those connections as well. So it was a very successful conference, and the fight back is ready to go.
If that meeting was any indication, and by the way, we made an announcement at the meeting. Our next convention is going to be June 7th, 8th, and 9th in Chicago next summer. Finally, we got the dates. And if that meeting was any indication of the politics and the spirit of what our convention is going to look like, it's going to be really, really historic. And Anita, one of the things that we talked about is that, we have a number of commissions and departments in the party. And we said that those commissions have two tasks. One is to build the party and to build the movement in the respective areas where they have responsibility. So labor amongst the working class,
Mhm.
women's commission efforts in the women's movement, African American and the Black community, and so on and so forth. So to build, but also to help us understand what's taking place so that we can make a better contribution. And one of the
Mhm.
things that the Labor Commission needs to do is to develop a labor program, uh, understanding what's taking place in the trade union movement now, that will help guide the party's work, because things have changed a lot. Last labor program we had was 20 years ago, and that was when around the time John Sweeney became the president of the AFL-CIO. And at that time, there was an anti-communist clause in the Federation and the
Mhm.
International Constitution. You couldn't be a member of the party or a communist or Marxist, socialist, and hold office. Sweeney got rid of that, and there was a whole new generation of trade unionists who came into leadership, you know. But now those fresh winds are burning hot, white hot, in fact. And we see that in the strike waves and in the growing militancy of the
Mhm.
trade union movement. You see it on the picket lines of the SAG-AFTRA strikes, and you saw it in the preparations for the UPS strike, and I think we're going to see it in the preparations for the UAW. Um, and charting that new direction is going to be really, really important. And I understand that the unions played a big role in that big vote y'all had in Ohio uh, against the MAGA rights attempt to uh, have that 60% threshold for referendums.
Mhm. Absolutely. The AFL-CIO locals, the Fed councils were really out in force. Uh, Understandably, not only are they in favor of women having rights over their own bodily autonomy, which is what the whole vote was kind of a proxy for, but we are also looking at possibly right to work for less, or whatever statutes being instituted in that process or in the legislature, and not being able to be overturned by citizens initiatives. So labor really, and also the minimum wage. There may be a citizen initiative to raise the minimum wage, and the corporate class in Ohio really feared that. But the AFL-CIO and the rank and file trade unionists, they recognized their interests in defeating issue one, and they really came out in force for that, and we won. So it was a great victory. Now we have to remember that reproductive rights are also workers' rights, and keep them in the coalition for November, the big vote on the amendment to um, maintain Roe v. Wade kind of freedoms in our Ohio Constitution.
Reproductive rights are workers' rights. Over half the working class are women. So if you're not fighting for abortion rights for over half of your, then what are you doing? I mean, it's uh, you're crippling the rights of half of your constituency, and and the more and more men understand that, the stronger our movement will be. Um, let's move the agenda. Um, in Montana, in a case held versus the state of Montana, Scott, a big victory was won. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so a group of young people, I can't remember how many, four, six, sued the state of Montana because the state of Montana, the Constitution of the state, guarantees, I think, a clean and healthful environment. And they alleged that the government of Montana, which is dominated by the Republican Party, has been not meeting its obligation, in fact, to youth, has its actions, supporting fossil fuels, neglecting environmental preservation, the whole sort of right-wing thing, that it infringed upon the rights they were guaranteed by the state constitution, and they won. A judge recognized that they, yeah. That they had a right that the state had to respect, and this is a big deal, right? This is you know a victory that forces an extremely reactionary section of the ruling class to to honor obligations that it has been ignoring. I think it's a huge deal.
Rosanna, these were Native American young people. These were Native Americans, and they took advantage of a provision in the state constitution, which said that the state had to provide for a clean and healthy environment. That was written into the Constitution. And the judge ruled that the state there was a policy which the judge overruled, saying that it blocked consideration of climate issues in energy projects. And the judge ruled that this was a violation of the state constitution. And this is the first time in U.S. history that such a ruling was made, and it has broad implications, possibly for the entire country.
Well, the youth of today are showing us the way to fight back, and as we keep saying, we are the majority, and so when we stand up and we work to fight some of these millionaires, we do it. And I think I applaud the youth of Montana. Montana, I was surprised, of all states, had such a strong fight back that they won, and really it's a great victory, and I think has some implications in many ways for the rest of our country. A great example of 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 a sound fight back, not just hitting the streets as the only avenue, but really bringing fundamental change.
Congratulations to the plaintiffs and the held versus the state of Montana, and we hope that this ruling is going to stand. Anita, I think that they say that of course, the energy companies, the coal companies, I think Montana is like the 10th largest or something like that coal producer in the They're mad as hornets. But it looks like that ruling is going to stay in place for a while. It's going to be appealed to the Supreme Court.
Hmm. Well, it does look like it. They say it'll have ramifications way outside of Montana, and it just these super majorities of GOP, they're kowtowing to anything the energy, oil and gas industry lobbyists want, and they put in these they really hamper their own environmental protection agencies. And this shows they can't get away with that, because thank goodness for those state constitutions that often have some progressive lines in them, like guaranteeing a clean and healthy environment. It's brilliant. So I I wish them every good thing, and I hope that more of these lawsuits come out and are successful.
It just goes to show you, no matter where you are, if you fight and struggle, you can win. It could be in Montana, it could be in Colorado, it could be in Georgia. Uh, Generally considered conservative states, but there's a growing democratic movement in each of these. And we saw this, by the way, last week, where Trump and a whole bunch of other MAGA figures, including Rudy Giuliani and Trump's former chief of staff, Mark Meadows, and a whole lot of others were indicted on racketeering charges for trying to interfere with Georgia's election law. You got a big smile on your face, Rosa.
I love the racketeering charge. I just love it. I just think it was perfect. I love the fact that he cannot be pardoned by the governor. I love the fact that he's going to have to spend time in jail because of the rules in Georgia that the Republicans themselves put in place. It's now kicking them in the butt. I just, I look forward to watching the trial, uh, but I also hope that everybody in Georgia and in throughout the country really demand justice and a fair trial that really puts this man in jail and all of his friends.
Scott, Rosanna's right. The trial is going to be televised. Federal trials, they say, no, you can't. But in the state courts, and so this potentially has a audience of tens of millions. And that's why Trump and them are trying to get the case tried in 2026. That was announced yesterday. Scott, we can't hear you.
Oh,
You're
now
muted.
Scott's muted.
Sorry, I was muted. I had a little noise in the background here. Yeah, this is wonderful news. Obviously, every indictment is something that we, greet with applause and appreciation. But this one in particular, the idea that these people conspired to deprive the people of Georgia and the people of the United States of their democratic rights. It's really important. And I hope this becomes a kind of precedent for prosecuting anyone who interferes with the exercise of democratic rights, with the exercise of the vote. I think there's, obviously Trump and the circle around him is the center of that. But voter suppression and disenfranchising people, taking away their right to participate in governance, is something that the Republican Party is doing everywhere. And I'd like to see a whole bunch more people with these kind of charges against them too.
Anita, your take?
I think it's wonderful. Not only I mean, Jack Smith's indictment on January 6th was so sparse and just zeroed in on Donald Trump personally. But this is the opposite. It's so expansive and includes, what is it, 19 conspirators plus 30 unindicted co-conspirators against whom charges could potentially be brought. So it means every little, MAGA supporter in these obscure counties in Georgia, if they broke the law, they're going to be held to account. And under the RICO statute, they're going to be seen as part of a vast conspiracy, a criminal conspiracy. This is what the RICO is what brought down our former House Speaker Larry Householder, who's in prison for 20 years now. So I think it was a joy to see this, the breadth of this indictment and its inescapability, as Rosanna was talking about.
Giuliani is one of those who's indicted. He and Meadows are trying to get their case in federal court. And I read a little story yesterday that said that Giuliani was touted as being an anti-mafia prosecutor. I broke up the mob. Well, the mob has never really been broke up. That's a whole lot of nonsense. But anyway, those gangsters that he put in jail, now they're smiling. Shoes on the other foot now, Rudy. Come on down. We're waiting for you. We got something for you down here. They're laughing, and you can understand why, because they said that while Giuliani was a prosecutor, he was a dirty, lying, vicious son of a blankety blank. And so we'll see what's going to happen. The big issue is, when are those trials going to take place? You got 96 charges or something like that against him, ranging from what happened with Stormy Daniels here in New York to what happened on January the 6th to what happened down in Georgia. But one of the big criticisms of the Attorney General, why did you wait so long? Because if they're able to postpone this thing well into next year, and then with appeals and everything, it's possible that Trump could then become president. And in some of those cases, they have that Justice Department provision that you can't try a sitting president. And so, speedy trial. That's what we have to. We need justice, and we need it. We need it soon. Let's go to our mailbag question. Interesting one. Communist Party comes to power in the United States. What will you do to dismantle U.S. cultural imperialism around the world? How will you deal with that? Anybody want to take a shot at it?
I'll say
Anita?
something, Joe, since I'm on my pictures there. I think one of the things that we have to keep in mind is the corporate nature of a cultural industry right now. There are, just like in other industries, there are corporations that are monopoly corporations. The handful of big studios against whom the SAG and AFTRA and the writers are striking is an indication of that kind of monopoly in the media industry. So I think with a dismantling of that and a socialist economy, you would have much more opportunity. And I would say just look to Cuba, a more socialist economy where the arts are flourishing. Visual arts, cinematography, just everything, music, of course. Those industries are much more of the people, and they're creative and flourishing. So that's what I hope to look forward to in a changed United States as well.
Rosanna, you're heading the party's ticket. You get elected president of the United States. What's your administration gonna do to address this issue?
Well, I think first and foremost, we want to be able to show the value of everyone's culture, not just U.S. culture. And the U.S. is really made up of so many different cultures, and show the value of it because what's happened in many countries is that it's been disvalued. Their own culture has been disvalued and pushed. This Western culture has been pushed so much, so that to show that there is a real value to your own culture and your own sensibility in terms of who you are and where you come from and all of those kinds of things, I think is important. So really begin to hold these types of events that highlight the different cultures and values of our society. And but I also think that this American culture is, and it's really not American culture; it's U.S. culture of imperialism. It's already being dismantled in the sense that with through social media, through TikTok, and through different the internet, where you can really see how horrible and how really it's not what you really want. It's not what the movies pictured it portray and everything like that. It's not that. It's really not a good thing.
Scott, what are you gonna do?
Well,
Ban rock and roll?
I really like the way that both Anita and Rosanna framed this, because the question isn't um, uh, just of U.S. culture. It's a question of the cultural, um, the cultural commodities um, uh, distributed, enforced, whatever, by the U.S. ruling class. Um, uh, the the culture in the United States is beautiful and diverse, and the culture of the U.S. ruling class, what they produce, the big studios and everything, is just a twisting and a distortion of that. So as we fight against that, as we fight for things like representation of people of color and trans people and um, other marginalized and oppressed groups in culture, that also is a way of weakening the sort of cultural imperialism, I would say. And it's part of the overall struggle against imperialism. Cultural imperialism is just part of the overall imperialist strategy um, of the U.S. ruling class, the domination of economies, of cultures, of the search for markets and profits wherever they can be had, and that's what we're fighting.
The biggest thing that we can do, in my opinion, is break up monopoly domination of U.S. culture in music and film and dance and every single aspect. You break up monopoly, put it in the hands of the people. Then you enter into treaties with other countries, with the United Nations. You guarantee other countries' cultures equal representation. That'll be the biggest. That'll be the biggest contribution that we can make. We celebrate the culture of the U.S. working class. 50 years hip hop, 50-year birthday this year. Jazz music, the new well, it's kind of old now, classical music of this country. We have music from other countries, from Latin America, from Asia, and we love that. The problem, rock and roll. The problem is its monopolization and export on behalf of U.S. imperialism. That does it for the week. We return to where we started We want to urge everybody, show up next Saturday, DC for the 60th anniversary march. Join our contingent. Send us a note, CPUSA at cpusa.org if you want to join our contingent. Be there, be square, if at all possible. We'll see you next Friday, the day before the march, here on Good Morning Revolution. Until then, stay strong, stay safe, stay in the fight. Have a good weekend, everybody. And Rosanna's going on vacation. Rosanna, enjoy. You'll be down in Mexico. I know you can't be with us, but your heart will be in DC with the party contingent and
Most
spirit.
definitely.
Take
Thank you.
care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.